What's up everyone, Elijah Porter here, welcome back to the channel. I've spent a lot of time showing you the bikes I ride around, but today I'm going to show you what I drive around. This is my 2014 Ford Focus Titanium that looks pretty good in these shots. Right before I bought the car 3 years ago, it didn't look anything like this. That's because I bought this car rebuilt after it was issued a salvage title. This method can save you a lot of money if you find a car that has been rebuilt properly, but it can be costly if you don't find a gem like I did. No, this is not a car review, but I will give you some quick stats on the car. Its 2-liter 4-cylinder engine produces about 160 horsepower and 146 foot-pounds of torque, propelling it 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds. It has a 6-speed automatic that you can operate semi-manually if you so choose, and it's fully loaded with all possible features offered, including remote start, my favorite. How much did I pay for all this frosty white goodness? Stick around to find out. So when I bought this car, I didn't know anything about the history of the car besides the fact that it had a salvage title, and then it was bought at an auction, and now it had a rebuild title. The first thing you should really do when you're going to purchase a car that you know has had a salvage title is look at the history of the car. So by using the VIN number, you can pull up a lot of websites that'll have like auction history, pictures of the damage of the car, and you should really do that before you purchase one of these cars. And so we're going to do that with mine now. I've actually never looked at mine before. I was just young and saw a good deal on a car I really wanted, and so I went for it. But we're going to do that now. So I've already copied my VIN number, and I'm going to put it in, and we're going to see it's going to bring up a lot of results. You can see here we have a lot of different results for my car with my specific VIN number. So the amount of search results is a little overwhelming, and I was surprised to find out that you have to pay to get a report of your own car on almost all these sites. It's important to find the site that has the most details for your car, and so I chose this one because it looked like it had the most detail and the most pictures, and so I went ahead, paid the $6.99 fee, and then I was able to see all of the stuff I wanted to see. Well, almost all. Alright, so now I can see all the pictures of my car and everything, and you can see, just like I said, I knew the car had front end damage. And I can see in these pictures that it had a pretty significant amount of front end damage. Obviously enough to total the car, that's why it was a salvage auction car. But the interior still looked pretty nice, just like mine does now. The engine looks okay. It was missing the engine cover, which it still is now. I should probably get it. It had an engine fault. Let's see what else. All that label stuff, all that stuff still on my car. So I can see here that when the salvage title was issued, it had 51,000 miles. It had a couple thousand more than that when I actually bought the car. So whoever had it before me had been driving it around. I think it had 56,000 when I bought it. So it was driven some after that. And now I have like 86,000 miles on the car. So I've driven it like 30,000 miles since I purchased it. Okay, over here on the right, we can also see the like estimated retail value of the car if it was like actually new. $11,000 was what it was saying the estimated retail value was. And when I was looking around for a fully loaded 2014 Ford Focus Titanium hatchback, that's about right. It's about $12,000. So I actually bought my car at like half price because I bought my car for like $6,500. So I actually got a pretty decent deal on it, even though it did have a rebuilt title. And you see all the other stats over here on the side. The auction info just has the location. It doesn't say what it was purchased for. And that kind of sucks, because I would like to see like how much profit the person that flipped it made. So the dealership I bought it from, they were the ones that rebuilt the car as well. And so I'd like to know, like, did they buy this car for like $2,000 and then fix it and then flip it for like $6,500? I don't know. I was hoping this would tell me that, but it doesn't look like it's going to. You can actually see here, kind of cool, that this was sold in China Grove, North Carolina, which is close to where I'm from. And when I actually bought the car, I looked in the GPS history and there were a lot of addresses in the system from like the little town that I'm from. So that was kind of cool that I bought the car in Miami, but it was actually from like the little town in North Carolina that I'm from. So through the time that I've owned my car, I haven't had any issues with it. You saw on that thing there was an engine fault. I've never had that come up again. Besides like normal maintenance stuff, I've never had any issues with the car. So there's no like weird panel gaps like a lot of times there are. So I don't think there's any frame damage on the car. I really should have had the car like checked out by a mechanic before I bought it, but I just really saw a good deal. I really wanted the like fully loaded best car I could get. So even though I didn't have the money to do it, I looked for salvage title cars, and luckily for me, it happened to work out okay with no issues. Like I said, I've driven the car 30,000 miles, and that's a lot of miles that I've put on it, and I haven't had issues with it. When I was in college, like I mentioned in previous videos, I delivered pizza, and I used that car for that. So a lot of times that car was driven like 100 miles a day for like days in a row. So recently I've become very interested in refinishing like salvage title cars, like maybe buying one and trying to fix it up myself. This one I didn't do that with. Obviously I bought the car already rebuilt with the rebuilt title, so it had no issues getting a tag and stuff like that. The salvage title would obviously have to be rebuilt and then pass inspection and all that stuff that I don't know anything about. And when I bought the car, I was in college. I didn't have any place to work on a car. You know, I was parking like at a dorm and stuff like that, so I didn't have a place to refinish a car. But now that we're about to move and I'm going to have a garage, it would be like an interesting project to buy like a really cheap salvage car and try to redo it. But I don't really know a lot of like about like mechanical stuff like that. That would be cool to learn though.
All right, so we're actually on our way to get an awesome new product that's really going to help the channel out a lot, I think, but I'll talk more about that later. But since we're in the car, I wanted to talk about the driving experience of my Ford Focus. So even though this is a salvage title that now has a rebuild title, I've never had any issues with the car besides like regular scheduled maintenance stuff like tires, brakes, oil changes, that kind of stuff. We take this car on long trips all the time. Like I've mentioned before, my family lives in North Carolina, about 800 miles away from where I live now. We take this car up there all the time. I've never had any problems with that. So as far as gas mileage in this car, right now the car's telling me it's getting an average of 26.8 miles per gallon. And I think on the highway I usually get between like 30 and 35, and then around town I get like in the like 24, 25 range. Most of my driving is around town, so that's probably why my average is a little bit lower. But on a long trip, you're getting pretty good gas mileage. The only time I get worse gas mileage is if I use flex fuel. This car is a flex fuel vehicle, and if you use flex fuel, you do tend to get a little bit lesser gas mileage, but it is better for the environment, and the gas is typically cheaper. Like, this car is reasonably comfortable. It's, you know, it's a small hatchback. It's relatively low to the ground. It has this car has the bigger rims on it, so your tires aren't quite as big, but it's reasonably comfortable on the road, and obviously not, you know, like as good as a nice luxury car or a big SUV. I'm like 6'1", I have plenty of headroom, I have plenty of leg room. My seat is all the way as low as it can go, but it's not as far back as it can go, and even with me sitting in the driver's seat, there's enough room in the back for an adult to sit behind me with reasonable comfort. You probably wouldn't want to take like a huge trip with somebody behind you, especially if they're taller, but it's really not that bad sitting in the back with somebody in front of you. This car has adequate power for anything you need. You can get around a slow car that's in your way. You can get out of a potentially dangerous situation where you might have a wreck. I never feel like the car is too slow. Obviously the car is not super fast. It's, you know, your standard Ford hatchback. It's not got a huge engine or extra power or anything, but it does the job. So the only issues that I have had with this car from a mechanical standpoint are factory recalls. So this car does have a fuel pump issue that it says my car is affected by, but I've never had any of the symptoms of being affected by it. I'm not exactly sure what the recall says, but something about it can make the fuel range wrong and it can make the car stall out. I've never had any of these issues, but my car does have that recall issue for the VIN number, so I am going to be getting that fixed. And another thing is the clutch shutter. I'm not exactly sure again what the precise issue is, but sometimes when you're taking off, the car will kind of shudder a little bit, almost like you're about to stall out a manual car. And that's also a factory recall that I can also get fixed for free. So both of those issues don't have anything to do with the car being a rebuilt title. Other than that, I've never had any serious mechanical issues. I've only done oil changes, tire changes, and basic maintenance stuff. So overall, my impressions of this car are that I really like it. It's exactly what I wanted. When it was time for me to get a new car, I either wanted this or a Fiesta. I'm a really big fan of small hatchbacks. My very first car I ever had was a Mazda Protege 5, which was a small hatchback. My second car was a Volkswagen Golf that was also a small hatchback. And then I had two small Ford Rangers, and then I got this car. So when I was looking for small hatchbacks, the Ford Focus was like, it had all the equipment, all the features that I really wanted. And since I got this one as a salvage or as a rebuilt title, I was able to get a fully loaded car for a really great price, several $1,000s off. If I would have tried to find one with a regular standard title, I was able to save a lot of money by buying this one as a rebuilt title, and I haven't had any issues with it, so obviously it worked out well for me this time. I can't promise that will be everyone's story, and I'm sure there are plenty of rebuilt title cars out there that people may not have the same great experience with, but overall with this one, I've had a pretty decent experience. I saved a lot of money by getting it, and like I said, it's fully loaded. It's got every single thing, every feature that I could want or possibly need, and I really enjoy the car.